Hello, welcome back to another CraignDave Unscripted. If you've been following our last couple of videos, you'll know we've been having Alan Harrison on. So we're bringing him back again, third week in a row. Hi, Alan. Thanks for joining us again.
Hello again. Thanks for having me.
And for those who don't know from the previous video, so Alan, blimey, in brief, teacher, trainer, father, Raspberry Pi content creator, NCC facilitator, author. This man has hats upon hats upon hats. And yes, that is why we originally brought him onto the stream a couple of weeks ago to talk about his new book, which look, we've given it loads of accolades and we've spent 2 videos on it. So we're not going to go into that today, but please, if you haven't seen them, go back and have a look. It's available now, How to Teach Computer Science. So that's why we first got into Alan. But he's here for a different reason today. Today we're just going to have a bit more of a, I guess, informal chat. We've plugged your book, and rightly so, for a couple of weeks. But we know that, and you know, a thank you from us. We know that you're a good user, a proud user of our resources as well. And you talked last week and the week before about your journey into teaching. It's not a lifelong thing. It was a midlife career change, and started off as an NQT like anyone else. And you know, you've been on your own journey. So really, it's it's a bit more of an informal chat around those sort of ideas really. So I guess. Oh, and one thing. Just in case people think me, Dave, and Alan don't change our clothes, we did record these videos back to back on the same day. You know, we do. Computer scientists do have a varied wardrobe.
Alan's a busy man. I mean, we're lucky to get him. If we don't record these 3 in one go, it's not happening, is it?
I did worry about that. I was,
you know, time's precious. His agent is going to be, you know, tapping the watch in a minute. So.
Oh dear. Yeah, I was thinking of having a quick change then, but. No, let's just show behind the curtain, as we were talking about earlier. No, we're all recording these all on one day. So,
Well, let's start
absolutely.
then. So, I mean, how did you first hear about CraignDave then? You decided at 45, I think you said, I'm going to go into teaching, and you're an NQT like everyone else. And at some point, you learned about us. So, yeah, how did that happen?
Well, I used the phrase "rabbit in the headlights" earlier, and I think all new teachers feel a bit like that. So, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? And so you start scrabbling around for things to make life easier, don't you? And so I came across your videos, and I think probably it was at a CAS meeting where Alan O'Donoghue introduced his MOOC. And in his MOOC,
very famous at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So his MOOC was basically a Moodle which had links to loads of resources on, and your videos were among them. And I thought, oh, these videos are great. I'll use them. And you know, like most teachers, I used them sometimes in lessons. Sometimes I'd set them for homework, but then I'd know that half the kids didn't watch them, and I didn't really know how to get the most out of them until really I started paying attention to what Alan O'Donoghue was saying about flipped homework. And so we went flipped, and I tried going flipped way back, but it was only when I realized I needed to invest time in getting the students to really do it properly that I started getting success. And I think it's about, you know, embedding the process of flipped learning. A lot of teachers have tried it and then failed, and there's been some studies that show that it doesn't work. And I think that it fails if you don't spend the time investing in the process.
It's like anything as well. So I know Dave's got loads to say. I'll keep myself brief, but flipped learning as well. Oh, well, I don't teach anymore then, do I? I just sit at the front of the class, they do it and they get on with it. I'm not teaching. I am more involved with my students and have more in-depth, detailed conversation and do more teaching on a one-to-one basis than I ever did before when I was standing at the front waffling at them for 15 minutes. It's not less teaching. If people think flipped classrooms for lazy teaching, they haven't got their head around the pedagogy just yet, which is fine. But I wouldn't go back now.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go back. So they come into the classroom with a level of knowledge about the topic that you're going through today, and we can talk about the ways to maximize that to make the homework exercise more effective. But the main thing is they're coming in not blank slates, if you like. So they've learned a bit, they've watched the videos, they've listened to you guys, and they've, engaged with the material. And some will grasp it straight away and go, yeah, absolutely, I know what scheduling is, for example. And some will go, yeah, well, I didn't quite get that bit. I understand why we do scheduling, but I didn't quite understand how the processes work and so on. So that's where I come in. I can then try and assess where they're at. So first of all, what have they grasped? And then I can start dealing with, getting everyone up to speed.
Yeah, exactly. So for those that are sort of tuning in and are not familiar with the CraignDave sort of flipped classroom approach, as Alan sort of described it there, just in a nutshell, at its very basic level, and there is a lot to unpack, but at its very basic level, it's about the students arriving at your lesson, as Alan says, with some knowledge. So instead of them arriving with, what are we going to learn today, and then expecting to learn the content for the very first time when you're in front of them, at its very basic level, it's about they come to your lesson with some knowledge. And we're not talking about some knowledge because they've learned it at Key Stage 3 or at junior school. We mean they've prepared for that particular lesson, and they can do the preparation in loads of different ways. And we're not going to go into all that now, but it can be watching our videos, as Alan's alluded to. It could even be, reading pages from a textbook. It can be anything that prepares them so that when they come to the lesson, they're not seeing the material for the first time. And that's really what we're talking about here, without going into an awful lot of detail. So absolutely. So, Alan, I do have a burning question before we go into much more detail about all this. Why would you want to do flipped classroom? Because nobody, as far as I'm aware, nobody goes to teacher training and they say, this is how you teach, this is flipped classroom, this is the way to do it. Yeah. Flipped classroom might be one of the pedagogies that is explored as part of the process. But everyone kind of learns to teach by standing at the front and imparting knowledge and kids doing exercises. That's kind of the classic, this is how you teach and how you learn to teach from other teachers, because of course those other teachers that you're learning from haven't taught in a flipped classroom way either. So what I'm really interested in is, having taught in a very classical way, let me put it that way, why would you want to do flipped learning? This is, I need to kind of understand why you want to make that transition first.
Well, for me, it enables a lot more time in the classroom applying the knowledge, which is the bit where, the students move from, passive receptors of new information to active users of that knowledge and able to apply it and do stuff with it. And I think that's the bit where I think a good teacher can add more value. So if I'm spending more time doing that bit, which is actually getting the children from, we've all heard of Bloom's taxonomy. So from, just I know stuff to I can do stuff. That's the bit where I think I can add value. So getting the students to actually do stuff. So if it's programming, which we were talking about in the last video, I might have shared a video about selection and how the if statement works. And then we can actually do it practically in the classroom. If I'm spending the first half of the lesson explaining how the if statement works and why we need selection, then why not have them, introduce themselves to the if statement outside of the lesson and selection and so on, and then come in with that. If we're talking about operating systems, the students can, learn a bit about the scheduler, like I was mentioning earlier. So they come into the classroom, and then, in the classroom, we can do the fun stuff, like maybe act out a scheduling process, which I know is one of your activities, and do the, the interesting and exciting parts in the classroom, if you like. And we can only get to that if they've come in with a little bit of fresh prior knowledge. So it makes the activities in the classroom more engaging, basically.
I completely agree. I mean, it's interesting you should mention scheduling. I mean, that's by chance. I haven't prepped you for that. But for the teachers out there that are using our resources, I've got an activity that is in its sort of final stages of development at the moment, which is a game that you can play with students where you sort of roll a couple of dice at the front of the classroom, and you can use online dice. You don't have to have physical dice. And all the students have got a piece of paper with what's called a roll and write game, and they're using the scheduling algorithms to kind of score points on their board. And Flipped is great for this, because the boring bit, if you like, of how does first come first serve work, right? Well, read or watch a video about that outside of the lesson. When you come to the lesson, within the first 5 minutes, we're playing a game. I mean, you know, and we're embedding that knowledge and we're having fun. And so you're right, Flipped Classroom it buys you time. That's effectively, for me, its biggest selling point, in a sense. It buys you time to focus on the things that are more interesting, that will embed knowledge, that will enable you to challenge those misconceptions that I know you're very keen on.
That's one of the biggest ones for me. I mean, there's hundreds of benefits, and I know we're going to do a lot of videos on this, and we've spoken about it before, so I won't go into it now. But one thing we talked about in a video ages ago, Dave, was we very roughly calculated, when we looked at what is not new now, but the new A-level spec, the current A-level spec, when we looked at it, we went, we do not have enough time to deliver this in detail. And when we looked at Flipped and set the introduction theory knowledge as homework and looked how that would plan out and free up lesson time when we were didactically teaching, effectively the formula was we created a third extra lessons out of nowhere. Over the course of the 2 years, we said we've created 40 extra lessons of student doing, engaging, correcting misunderstandings, deepening learning. Like, if I told a teacher I can create you 40 extra lessons out of nowhere, I mean, that's one of many benefits. It's just
it does feel like it, absolutely. And Alan O'Donoghue, who is obviously a key advocate of flipped learning, he introduced it to me in a CPD that he did 4 or 5 years ago when I was in my early career. And his slide was that famous picture of a car with square wheels. And so he showed a picture of a car with square wheels, and then a picture of a car with round wheels, and he said, I'm going to take your teaching from this to this, you know. So it's like someone pushing a car with square wheels and suddenly someone pootling down a hill in a car with round wheels. And that's how he described when he discovered flipped learning and using the flipped classroom approach, and that's how he felt. He was suddenly spending the time in the classroom doing the hard bit that is valuable, instead of spending the time in the class where it's just talking, pointing at stuff, you know. So you can do the talking and pointing at stuff on your videos, and then the kids can watch those, and I'll do the fun stuff.
Sorry, I guess I'm really curious here. And then is you've been through that journey then of teaching in the, let's call it, traditional way, and then journeying through starting with flipped learning. So you would have gone through experiences of, oh, this isn't quite working right, what am I doing? And now you're like fully on board with flipped learning. And we know there'll be teachers watching this at some point and be like, I've tried it and given up, or I'm thinking of trying it. So, I mean, we always spout on about how great it is, but it'd be nice to hear someone else, you know, how did you prepare your students for it? And then more specifically, what challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? And why are you now such a strong advocate? That journey, I think, would be really interesting.
Yeah. So I tried it for a while. With little success, because I didn't realize how much time you need to invest in the early stages of setting flipped homework and getting the homework back and doing something with it that's meaningful. Because if I just say go and watch a video, then of course a handful of students will go and watch a video and they'll get something out of it, and loads of them won't, because if they think there's no accountability, they won't bother. So you can't just set a video, so you have to ask for something handed in, some evidence that they watched it. And so that's usually in the form of some kind of notes. So I know that you advocate Cornell note taking, and that's something that I do now with my year 12s. And I did say to you earlier, I'll probably get my year 10s going into 11 onto this. If they're watching, we're going to do this. When we get back in September, we're going to go to Cornell note taking. But as long as the rule I had starting last September with current year 10 was, as long as there's evidence there that you've watched the whole video and understood most of it, then I'm happy. So what I'm looking for is some bullet pointed notes of the key features of the video, that type of thing. Maybe an image that you think represents the key learning in the video. 1 or 2 images would be good. And so I've had students creating all sorts of things, but we're moving towards Cornell notes, and I'll show you an example of some good quality notes that I've ended up with, but it wasn't always like this. So you can share that example there. So this is actually from year 12. So what I've done is create, take your template that you showed there, put it into class notebook. This is OneNote class notebook. We're all a Microsoft education school, but you can do similar things with Google or any other platform that you use. And so I've made a template, and this one is about scheduling, the scheduling algorithms. And so this student has, written some cues down the side, which are, the keywords, made some notes in the middle, which is what you usually start with, took a screenshot from the video, okay, and then bullet pointed notes. This is really, really detailed, and I wouldn't always ask for this amount of detail, particularly at Key Stage 3. And then we go down to a summary of the topic in 3 sentences. And so we've got a summary there in quite a few more than 3 sentences. So this is a very keen student who's done loads.
I mean, you're right. This is a keen student, but look at that level of understanding they're coming to your classroom with.
Yeah.
And even if all the others don't do it to that extent, but they all do it, it just coming to the lesson with some understanding. It's that change of question. We said it. Oh, sir, what are we learning today? Well, you tell me, because you know.
Absolutely. So let's go back and focus on that absolutely critical point. And let's always keep coming back to this, because this is where the really important part is, isn't it? So, okay. So Alan, you've understood the benefit of flipped learning. It's going to give you time. It's going to increase understanding. The students are going to be able to get on with learning the subject in more depth with you and focus on what's important. And it's interesting you said earlier, we can get on to the hard bit. And maybe sometimes teachers are too comfortable with putting a PowerPoint on the board and just going through it, because it is easy. As long as you've done the prep, it doesn't require any additional sort of mental agility. You can just put it on the board and you can go through it, and it is easy. But actually the hard bit is then, doing the activities, the engagement, the conversations, the questioning and everything else. So you've understood the benefits of it all. And now you've got to get some students ready for this, because you don't go from not making any notes to making notes like this. So fill in the gap for me.
Yeah, so I would use something called a Waggle, what a good one looks like. Or if you don't want to use the acronym, just here's some good examples of what I'm expecting. So, and so I would go through this. If I use this as a Waggle, it's probably way more than I'm going to get from a lot of my students. But anyway, they take notes during the watching of the video in this bit, and I explain what I'm looking for is just, a bullet point for each key learning point from the video. So you could, what is scheduling? It's a multitasking operating system, gives the appearance of tasks executing at the same time. Great, that's what multitasking is. What scheduling? It's when you need to run share your resources between multiple jobs on the computer. Okay, and I'll ask for maybe an image, and this is a good image example. So we've got a ready queue, and then we've got the running in the CPU, and then we've got the notion of jobs going back to the back of the queue. So they're going to remember what scheduling is with an image like that. It's getting a queue of jobs to execute in a system with obviously limited resources and lots of demands on the resources. So there's an image there that's going to help them remember. So to come back to your question, I will show an example of what I'm looking for. And then over the first few weeks of taking homework in and checking it, I will repeatedly, if it's on paper, use a visualizer and put it up on the board and say, right, this is a brilliant piece of homework, or this is lacking a little bit. Can anyone tell me what this person could add to this homework to make it a really valuable flipped notes. Okay, and we have to go through that process over week after week, and there were poor quality homework still coming in after 2 or 3 weeks, and so I did use the school sanctions, and there were some students that had to sit in detention and redo their homework. But it took a few weeks, but then I started getting really good homework. So they knew after a few weeks of modeling of what they should do, showing good examples, comparing them to bad examples, and then sanctioning repeated bad, less than top quality homework over a few weeks, maybe the first half term of year 10. It took for me to embed the process, and they realized, well, I'll have to watch the darn video now. And
as soon as they realize that you're serious and that it's not going to go away, then life gets a little bit easier. I think one of the problems is that, we often complain that the students give up too easily, and particularly when they're programming and things like that. One of our big criticisms is the students give up too easily. They've got no perseverance. Well, shine a mirror on your teaching for a moment. Okay, so you're saying flipped classroom doesn't work. Well, how much have you persevered with it? How much have you tried to break the problem down and understand where the problems are and how to solve them? And if you do that, then, funnily enough, it does start to become a little bit more successful. And we said something right at the very beginning about, some teachers thinking, oh, it doesn't work. I think Craig mentioned it. But you know what? All teaching styles work and all teaching styles fail. And, you have to find the middle ground and what works in the middle of that. Because if you were to... and I've told this story before, I'm sure. I don't know if I've told it on Unscripted. I think I have. I might have done. Anyway, I remember teaching with a teacher once, and their teaching style was simply this. The students come into the lessons, and he would give them a past paper or past paper questions. It was just questions. And the kids did the questions, and he would go through the answers. And that was the lesson. There was no teaching. There were no activities. That was the lesson, and it was the lesson every lesson, apart from when they were doing project work. This is A-level I'm talking about. And at the end of the year, he would always get good results. Now, would anybody say that that was good teaching? Probably not, but he was getting good results. And we did an experiment one year. I did all my kind of weird and wacky, amazing things. This was before the flipped classroom thing. And he did his teaching style, and we made sure that the classes were as comparable as possible, and had a look at the results at the end of the year, and his results were just as good as mine. But did I want to teach like that? And when I, in fact, some of the results were better than mine, dare I even say. And but we interviewed the students afterwards and said, okay, tell us about your learning experience, blah, blah, blah. Now, 0% of his students said they enjoyed his lessons and would do computer science in the future. And almost 100% of my students said they enjoyed the lessons and would do computer science in the future. But the point I'm making is not, oh, how good was my teaching? The point I'm trying to make is that all strategies succeed and all strategies fail. You can turn up to every lesson and tell the kids, read these pages from the textbook and do no teaching. And some of your students will succeed and they will still get A grades, and some will fail. You can do a flipped classroom approach, and for some, and you might find that it works and sometimes it fails. And I just think teachers, they give up too easily. And everything works and everything fails, but you have to find a way through it. And I think the same is true of recipes and recipe books. And I'm not a good cook, but sometimes I like the look of that cake in the recipe book, and I think, oh, I'll have a quick go at that and I'll make it. It comes out, it looks nothing like that cake in the recipe book. It's awful. I'll never make it again. Does that mean that the recipe was wrong? Does that mean it doesn't work? No, it didn't work for me because I wasn't able to put in all the nuance and other bits and pieces that, whoever had prepared that recipe is clearly able to do, because those recipes in that book go through endless proofreading and proof testing. So the problem was me, not the recipe.
Absolutely. Like I say, I think there's been studies that have tried to debunk flipped learning, and I just think they fail because it's not just something you turn up and do and expect the kids to thrive in. Like I say, I spent a whole half term really embedding the process, and I'm still refining and improving. And there are still students that occasionally think they can get away with handing in some rubbish, and I will still deal with that. Just while I've got it on the screen, I've noticed that this is something that I do. So I share this template, and then I've got this highlighter here, and I can just move that up to high quality, because I'm all about the very easiest and simplest ways of giving feedback that is valuable. So that's high quality. And of course, this is class notebook, so I could do the usual, I can tick and everything. It's great. Flick and tick. But if there was feedback to give on this, then I could also type on here as well, and I can even add audio notes, which is something I'm going to probably explore next year. So it's still a process. You're still setting homework, you're still marking homework. It's just I mark for effort generally, and not a huge amount for content. Once I've embedded the process, I generally do mark stuff they hand in on the basis of how much effort they put in, rather than is every single word correct. And I think that's something that I would recommend to anyone listening. Really, is the vast majority of the value you get out of marking is simply the accountability for effort. So you just check that they put the effort in. I don't have to go through this and check that it's accurate in every word, but because I'll know that when we do the activities in the classroom. So if teachers are drowning in marking, I would scale it back. I do flipped homework and just mark for the effort they put in.
If teachers, I'm going to say something controversial now. If teachers are drowning in marking, stop marking. Yeah. Okay, listen to Dave for a minute. Never mind SLT, because I can have a different conversation about them, because I was one, so I understand.
You were.
But what you need, stop marking. Okay, stop marking and start talking. So don't mark their work. Instead, in the lesson, go and talk to them. Say, open up your book, have a look at the notes and say, I can see you've made a really good effort there. Well done. I like the fact that you're using bullet points to make your notes really clear. And I can see that they're concise and they're to the point. So well done for that. Here, you're not going to be able to revise from that because you've written too many words and some of them don't make complete sense. So you might want to have a reflection on that. Done. That marking there is so much richer than the marking you would have done if you'd have written it. So if there's any teachers out there that are drowning in marking, stop marking and start talking. That's the way forward. And
I'm going to share
send SLT my way, and I'll have a conversation with them about what marking, about what the purpose of marking is, right? Not what's the point? What are we trying to achieve? What's the end goal? And if the end goal is a better understanding for that student so they can perform better in exams, and so they are inspired in the subject and want to continue learning for the rest of their lives, then make marking do that. There you go.
Absolutely.
So
if you'd like,
say,
go on,
I would
Alan.
say don't call it marking, call it feedback, and make it meaningful feedback. And Dylan William famously said, feedback should be more work for the learner than the teacher. So what you should be aiming to do is make that student think hard about what they've done. I don't mean that in an unkind way. Think about what you've done. Think about the work they've delivered, and think about how they could have made it better, and think about how that exercise they could have used to learn more, and how they can now build on what they've learned and learn more. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So the reason I brought up our website here is not just to plug it for a random reason, but if you like Dave and his soapbox about pedagogy, if you go to our front page and scroll down, we have a pedagogy tile, and I'm being flippant, but this is fascinating for new teachers and experienced ones. We have articles here that we've written, I say we, mainly Dave, on assessment, challenge, differentiation, and some of them they may seem quite controversial, but they're they're grounded in a good understanding and about having a healthy work-life balance. I won't bring them up now. If I noticed in the book, you are kind enough, Alan, to link directly to this page in your book at one point, close to the beginning, the pedagogy page. So yes, you know, if you're struggling, come and read us some of this, because it might cause you to lift an eyebrow and have a conversation with your line manager. But we're not here to start a teaching revolution. Well, maybe we are. I think so. Let's get back to focus what the video is about then, Alan. Well, what else I'm curious, what else of our resources do you use? Obviously, you use the videos, the notes. Do you actually use the in-classroom activities, or do you tend to use your own, or mix and match of both? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, I do. So I use the premium resources, the activities on PowerPoint and so on. So I generally, you match them up to the videos. So normally there's an activity or two there. I do mix and match. So obviously I've got Paul Long's resources as well. And it's great that, you know, you partnered with Paul and do that special deal and stuff. I know it works really well. So, you know, I said we disparaged slightly standing at the front and pointing at slides, didn't we? You know, but on the other hand, a good quality slideshow with a teacher that understands the subject knowledge as well is also very, very valuable. So
are there occasions where I have to teach a concept from the front? Yes, of course there are. For whatever reason, it's like, right, you guys haven't got it. There's a misunderstanding here. But I've identified that misunderstanding much earlier now. And I've gone, right, give me 10 minutes, do this activity. And then, I do traditional teaching still. Of course we do.
Yeah, and we've said this before, and I'm just going to underline it and say it again for, you know, other people that are teachers and everybody else that are watching these videos. You know, we believe in the products other people put out there as well. You know, this isn't just about CraignDave and only CraignDave. This, you know, we love, and I've shown this a load of times.
We use this textbook.
There we go. We love the textbook. You know, we like looking at other people's resources. We like, you know, Paul Long stuff as well, and you know, diving into a few activities from, you know, CS UK, and absolutely, you know, mix it up. And I think one of the problems with the flipped classroom, when people don't really understand it very well, is they say, oh, it's very formulaic. Oh, I want to get away from formulaic teaching. And all you do is you make them watch a video, they write notes in their exercise book, they come in, they do activities, you do a Q&A, and they leave. No. That's the framework. That's the scaffolding. That's the kind of, you know, that's the approach. But that doesn't mean we don't mix it up. Of course we do. And, you know, it's that's still part of the flipped approach. You don't just do the same thing every single lesson. I find that really frustrating. People that say, oh, flipped classroom doesn't work, it's boring. Boring? How can it be boring?
The only actual structural change is that they're watching a video and making notes for homework. What you do in the classroom is still up to you, and you can do as much as you like of the you know, direct instruction on top of that if you want. So you can teach the whole thing all over again if you think they need it, you know, using Paul Long or Computer Science UK from Sam Wickens, which is another one. Great stuff. Anything you like, or the teacher computing resources from NCCE. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, using Paul Long's resources is great, and we're not in any there's no relationship here between CraignDave and Paul Long. Let me put that out there. It is simply that Paul's got great resources, we've got great resources. We know schools want to buy both. We'll give them a discount, and you know, to an extent that's really as far as it goes at the moment. And in the future, we want to make sure that our resources don't overlap quite as much as they do. But absolutely, so they've watched a CraignDave video for homework. They've made some notes. They come into the classroom, and then you might have something on the board that is one of the activities from the Paul Long resources. Get them started with that, absolutely, and then stop them and say, right, I just want to tease out some of your understanding, and you're going to use Paul Long's PowerPoints to tease out their understanding, because they are different from the PowerPoints they watched for us for homework.
And that really helps. And that's the thing about mixing it up, is because, you know, I write about this in the book. Different explaining things in different ways.
Yeah.
With different materials can often get across a topic better than just doing it once. So yeah, I will re-explain. I'll use other resources, and eventually, the penny will drop. Hopefully for everyone, but we'll find that out soon enough. So yeah, I mix and match. I do all sorts of stuff. I do. I start each lesson with retrieval practice, a low stakes quiz, basically most of the time now. So I find that really, really valuable.
Do you do that with Smart Revise?
And I do that with Smart Revise sometimes, not always, but yes, we do. So you've got this other product, Smart Revise, haven't you, Dave? Can you tell us a little bit?
If it didn't come up, I was going to ask, do you use our flagship product?
I know, of course. I was getting there. So sometimes
I didn't know the answer to that. I was kind of half expecting you to say, no, I've got some sheets. And
no, I make my own stuff. No, the funny thing is, and you know this, I know, because we've talked about it. A couple of years ago, I did write a load of stuff for Quizlet. So if you search online for Quizlet verified resources, that was me. So I already had tons of Quizlet stuff, and you can find my Quizlet stuff at my blog, httcs.online. And then I had a look at Smart Revise, and I started using it at A level, and I thought, this is quite good. And then you just kept making it better. So yes, I do use Smart Revise. So yes, tell us about Smart Revise, Dave.
Tables
no,
have
I'm
turned.
not sure you want me to tell you about Smart Revise. This stream will turn into a 3-hour long stream. You're far better off with Craig on that one.
We're at 36 minutes. Yeah, Dave's not going to answer that question.
All
no,
right.
I mean, we have talked about Smart Revise when we did our video on the forgetting curve, and we are definitely going to be. But now you've brought it up, I am going to use this video to say to the community we have a big feature coming in September, and in a couple of weeks. No, I think actually next week and the week after, Dave and I are going to do a couple of videos outlining some of the latest features that you're going to have coming. But it's a course companion, and we designed it to solve the problems that we experience in the classroom. And it takes in all the pedagogies that we've learned and that Alan's been talking about, interleaving, spaced learning, the forgetting curve, Rosenstein's principles. We've built it on a solid pedagogy. We've not just built a multiple choice quizzing tool. But I'm really going off topic now. But yes, we're definitely going to chat about that in the next couple of videos, because we've got a very exciting feature coming. But it's nice to hear people using it. And a lot of people don't know this, but we have a tight-knit group of teachers across the country, which are kind of a bit like essentially a focus group, and we ask them, what do you want next? Dave and I are only two teachers. If you leave us to our own devices, we'll come up with new features that people might not necessarily want, and most of the time we hit the nail on the head. But this product is being crafted by real teachers. So if you're out there and going, I wish Smart Revise did this, or I love that, but if only that, then get in touch and let us know. Because if you don't, Dave and I will just keep bringing out features that we think you want. At the end of the day, we're real teachers with real students as well. So it is heartwarming to hear that you've found a place for it in your teaching as well, Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. And so sometimes I will go, right, Smart Revise for 8 minutes. It's a very specific number, but I do find that if you say to the kids, spend 5 minutes on something, then that is some meaningless number that could mean 1 minute or 10 minutes in their heads. So I say 7 minutes on Smart Revise. Oh, okay.
True.
Yeah, no, it's weird. If on all your slides, if you say, right, do this for 7 minutes, then they know you mean it. If you say 5 or 10 or 15, then they go, yeah, it's some random number. I'll do it.
Round numbers. Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll do it till the teacher's bored. So 7 minutes on Smart Revise, and so they're now fighting each other in year 10 and 12. They're now fighting their way up the leaderboard. So it's great, which of course they're doing through revision or retrieval practice, if you like. So which is great, because I start to see them using the proper terms in their work,
That's
so
nice.
saying things like, the cache is faster than the retrieving from RAM, and primary memory is the memory that can be accessed by the CPU during the fetch, decode, execute cycle, and they're using all the proper words and not just going, it's more efficient, it's faster.
Quicker. Yeah.
Dave's computer is faster because it's got more stuff. It can fit more stuff in. There you go. Dave's computer is faster because it can fit more stuff in. In where?
Yeah.
And then, so now they're saying Dave's computer is faster because a clock speed of 3 gigahertz can execute more instructions per second than Craig's PC or whatever. And so they're using
the
right word.
True, by the way, Dave. My
I'm sure it's
definitely
not
better
true.
than yours.
Craig's the one with the gaming chair, so it's probably not here. It's probably not true at all. So yeah, smart revise. So they start using the proper words for stuff and stop telling me it's more efficient or it's faster, and they start saying real stuff, like the cache speeds up retrieval and stuff.
Oh, that's nice
brilliant.
to hear.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, Alan. We'll sort of wrap it up there, I think. Unless you've got anything burning that you want to add in there. It's been absolutely fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for your time over the past 3 episodes, because although we said, yes, we've recorded them back to back, because it's just more convenient, but release them every Monday. It is nonetheless 3-4 hours of your time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's now 1 in the morning. I'm going to watch the Olympics. It's starting in a minute,
And I've still got so many more conversations I want to talk to you about. As I've said, I nearly said TCP then, but yeah, TCK and retrieval and interleave practice and so many other topics. So hopefully in the future we can bring you back and have a deep dive into some of those pedagogical discussions. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's been great fun. Collabing, as the kids say.
Special mention from Craig and Dave to 10C out there.
10C.
11C. Really huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Craig and Dave, we've got you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm bringing this to an end. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks very much.